Welcome back. 1 week from today is Inauguration Day, ending President Joe Biden's 4 years in office. But before he leaves the White House, he is set to give a farewell address to the nation on Wednesday. NBC News senior White House correspondent Kelly O'Donnell joins us with a look ahead at the president's address. Kelly, good morning. You are certainly an expert to be able to speak with you here, having covered Biden in and around the White House for 12 years here. So thank you very much for joining us. We know that a president's farewell address, it's kind of like this unofficial tradition. Now, usually they're kind of, notes of reflection, right? And wishing the incoming administration good luck. What do we know about what Biden plans?
Well, it is very much that. It's a capstone of a career. And in Joe Biden's case, it is a half century of public service. This whole week will be filled with a mix of planned departure notes. Today, the president will be delivering a foreign policy address. Wednesday is the farewell address, which is broad across all kinds of topics. And the intention is to have a final conversation with the American people while sitting president, to reflect on what the country's experienced together, to reflect on how he came into office, which, of course, when we think back, is at a time when COVID was a daily part of our lives with significant deaths, disruptions in so many ways of American life, loss of jobs. He'll talk about the economic gains that he believes he has put in place with job creation over that time, stewardship in the world. Today, we'll especially hear about that when he goes to the State Department to talk about foreign policy, and that he came into office saying America is back, trying to repair relationships with partners and to deal with adversaries around the world. So in all of the dimensions of American life, domestic issues, the experience of democracy being at stake and being tested, also foreign policy and America's place in the world, all of those things are sort of the final note of the president to the public. Of course, he will participate in the inaugural events. That's something we did not see when Donald Trump was leaving office 4 years ago. Joe Biden has tried to look at this transition as something that, even though it was an outcome he did not want, that he wants to fortify and focus on the traditional events of handing off in a peaceful way. So it will be the story of his time in public service. It will be what he believes he achieved and what he hopes for what comes next when he leaves office.
And Kelly, I mean, just such a career in Washington. It goes back to 1973 for him, more than 50 years, 8 years vice president, 4 years president. How much do we think he'll touch on that legacy?
I think in degrees he will, because it's one of the longest presidencies that has that kind of public life attached to it. At times we've seen presidents come into power, serve a short time, and then move on. With Joe Biden, he has been a fixture of Washington and in very relevant ways for a very long time. And for him, he has often described that as being the core of who he is, wanting to be relevant and public servants and being able to affect change. So he believes he has done that and that he has left the country in a better place than it was 4 years ago. That was a big subject of the campaign, and certainly with President Trump winning, there's an argument to be made that the public did not feel his stewardship was as positive as he would like to describe it. But that is often at this point judged by history later. And so for Joe Biden at age 82, retirement is not something he was eager to embrace. And he said in response to reporters' questions that he will still be seen and heard as a post-president. That's a question about what will that look like and how many opportunities there'll be for him to continue to comment on national affairs.
Certainly. Kelly O'Donnell, we appreciate your expertise on this morning. We'll be seeing you this week. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.